What's up, nerds? Welcome back. Today I'm talking to you about Spirits of Vengeance, Spirit Rider number one, a book that almost makes you believe it's about Ghost Rider, but then it's actually not about Ghost Rider. So one thing that's interesting about this is that one of the writers on it, or I don't know if he's the only writer on it, is he? No, he's one of the writers on it is Taboo, one of the guys from Black Eyed Peas. I only know that because when I saw the name, I was like, Taboo. Why does that sound familiar? I've never been a Black Eyed Peas fan, so when I heard that, I was like, well, okay, let's see what we got here. And what we got here was wow. All right. So let's get into it because we start out with basically Spirit Rider. If you don't know who that is, it's this. She's on the cover. She's basically like a Ghost Rider, except she's not really a Ghost Rider because she's both a Spirit of Vengeance and she's a Sorcerer Supreme. Yeah, I bet you didn't know we had one of those running around here too. Yeah, that's a thing that happened in Doctor Strange and the Sorcerers Supreme, which was a series back in like what 2016 or 17, something like that. And so that's where she first came out. We didn't get a whole lot of backstory on her. Obviously, she's a new character, so I guess this is where they kind of try to expand a little bit more on the character, but oh god. Like for one thing, there's a whole lot she does a whole lot of internal monologuing in here, and there's not a whole lot of point for like on this one she's talking cuz she's from the 1800s but now she's in modern day. So on this first one she's talking about like how she discovered the internet and like the jokes here are like 15 years old because she's talking about how from ancient spell books to these web pages that have no connection to a spider other than the way they get you stuck for hours. Oh, you thought that was it? I once lost an entire afternoon to cat videos. You remember how you get lost in cat videos still? Like that's what I was saying. Like those are jokes from like 15 years ago. People are watching so many other things, and it's usually TikToks, and it's usually not of cats. But anyway, and she's like, and I would do it again. How one gets any work done with all those cute cat videos in this information spider web? I will never understand. No, what you don't understand is timely references and how to shorten some of this shit up. Because this is what I'm saying. This is where the editor should have stepped in and been like, yo, drop all of this shit. Because this A is not funny and B is dated. So, I mean, there's no point to have it in here. Anyway. I mean, it's really just that, like, bland, generic attempt at being like, oh, she's a woman out of time. Isn't she quirky? No, it's annoying. But anyway, we finally see where Johnny Blaze, the Ghost Rider, is having a bit of a problem. He's attacking like Manhattan and shit. And she's saying like in the captions or whatever that this isn't her. He's the one actually like causing chaos or whatever the hell in downtown Manhattan. But that luckily, where she's saying like, I have always walked a fine line between the darkness and the light. In my time, I was called the Demon Rider. My mother called me Little Bear. Doctor Strange calls me Sorcerer Supreme. I'm sure he does. And she's like, but you may call me Kushala. So that's where we see her sitting with her group of like friends or whatever, or two of her friends or whatever the hell. And they're talking about something about how they want her to go and do stand-up comedy, which I don't understand how that's a thing for because one thing, she's from the 1800s, but I mean I think she said she's been living here for a few years, so I guess she's already like captured the finer complexities of humor that her friends want her to go and do stand-up. Either that or they're just bad friends, encouraging her to do something that would embarrass herself. But anyway, that's when Doctor Strange shows up, and her friend is like, oh, I smell what? Sorcery and sweaty leather. And that's when they're like, oh, well, that makes sense because it's Doctor Strange. And I was like, sweaty leather? Like, I've never thought of Doctor Strange as being sweaty, but okay, apparently that's a thing. So anyway, he's like, hello, Kushala, you met Johnny Blaze because he has him with him. And so that's where they sit down and start like talking to her about like everything that's going on with it. And she just kind of says like, okay, well, that's sad, but what does it have to do with me? And that's where he tells her, in my meditations, I saw the mountain where your tribe was massacred. the first place where you connected to your own vengeance. So she's like, oh, so it could be the same kind of spirit. He's like, my thoughts exactly. So then she says, then perhaps entering Johnny's soul will bring answers to my own questions. So her friends are like, okay, but are we still on for karaoke though? So she's like, well, if the demon doesn't kill me, then yeah, I'll be back. So I mean, that's kind of messed up to tell them like if I don't come back, it's because a demon killed me. But all right, I guess that's what's going on here. So she says she's gonna end up singing like "Eye of the Tiger" or whatever, because I guess that's also supposed to be relevant. That's what I'm saying. Like all of these jokes are so old. But anyway, it's like they walk into a bathroom stall and she's kind of like, well, damn, do we have to walk in here? And they're like, well, there are many reasons for why we're doing this, whatever the hell. So Doctor Strange teleports them to Sedona, Arizona, which is basically like where her tribe originally lived, I guess. And so they take them to the spot of like where her family was murdered and shit, which kind of grim, but all right. So she's saying like, or Johnny asks her, so you think some part of the demon that possessed you here is inside me now? What is it? And she says, I don't know. I have been searching for answers ever since I first encountered the entity. It seems only I can control it, just as you control your spirit of vengeance. He's like, yeah, but mine is connected to hell. This feels like an alien inside me. So Doctor Strange is telling them, like, yeah, we have to hurry because the spell that I use to control Johnny right now, it's going to wear off pretty soon, so we better get down to it. So she's saying, like, all right, you're going to have to trust me, Ghost Rider. If anything goes horribly wrong, it will already be too late. Because Doctor Strange tried to be like, don't worry, if something goes wrong, I'll be here to use my magic. And she's saying, like, if something goes wrong, even though you're here, it'll be too late. Nothing can be done. And so she's like, all right, Blaze, ready yourself. I'm going to enter you completely. And he's like, completely? Like, body and all? And she's like, yes, that's how my power works. Like, I will literally enter you body and spirit. So, kind of gross, but anyway, she goes in and because he asks her to like be gentle and she's like, well, no promises. So we get this little recap page where she's kind of going through like some of Johnny's history, like how he got his power and some of the things that have happened to him up to like some of the more recent continuity with him and shit. Just a real brief recap. And see, all of this is nice, but at the same time, like I said, ultimately the book isn't really about Johnny, so it was kind of wasted almost. So anyway, we go through all of that, and then she says, no wonder Johnny is a perfect host. He lives for the chaos, just like his father, because now they're going to go see his father. This is the first thing. Apparently, he has to go through like multiple stages of this shit to try and figure out what the actual corruption or whatever the hell is. So one of these first things they have to do is like go back to when his father died and shit. And so it says, I feel there is a great pain that feeds this being. If we can extract the pain, perhaps we can weaken its hold on you. And that's where he's saying, like, I know this place. He's like, that's my dad. He died when I was a kid. So she says that this would be that pain, his death. So he's like, okay, so what happens once we like figure this out? Like the infection is cleared and I get to go on about my life or whatever. She's like, yes, but only for this realm. Next, we must travel through air, then brave the fire, and finally cross the water. Then we will find ourselves at the mountain. That is the center of your soul, where your true spirit resides. It is where we will find this demon. So anyway, right at that moment while they're like talking and shit, his dad is coming up and is saying like, hey, you two, you're just who I was looking for. Like, I always want to personally show around anyone who's new to our little slice of like the world or whatever the hell. So he's talking to them and is saying like, did y'all catch me like doing my stunts and everything? And his Johnny's saying like, yeah, sure did. Impressive. And he says, you don't seem impressed, son. Fair enough. I've got one more stunt for the evening that's sure to make your head spin. And he's like, I'm heading for the tent to for some burgers if you'd care to join. So he invites them. And of course they go. And then while they're walking, they notice that like she notices that all of the people are looking at her. And she kind of like surmises that basically the reason is because as Doctor Strange's spell controlling the corruption or whatever in Johnny is starting to wear off, the corruption is starting to take notice of her and isn't too happy that she's there. So they're basically trying to figure out, or she kind of tells them like what ends up happening if they are unleashed and they just like come at us, like basically they'll end up eating me. So they go to where they're kind of like sitting down with him and just kind of like talking to him and shit. And then he's kind of getting some more information from them. Johnny tells him he rides motorcycles. She says she prefers just straight up horses and shit. And then Johnny's saying like, I wish we could stay here with you at the carnival. It would be amazing to learn all your stunts. And he's telling him like, you can, son. You can stay as long as you like. And that's where he finally asks him like, why do you keep calling me son? And then he like hesitates for a beat, and then he's like, I call a lot of young men I respect son. So all of a sudden, that's when we see his actual son, Johnny, like as a little kid, comes running in and shit. And so they take him out because he's getting ready to do like that final trick or whatever the hell. So little Johnny's all excited, and of course older Johnny is also kind of excited because it is his dad. But as soon as he takes off, they can see like, okay, yeah, this isn't going right, and then it explodes, and we see this nightmare fuel. But this is immediately where we start to see, like I said, it's kind of taking more of like a turn towards her, because the spirit or whatever the hell it is of his dad is like yelling at her, you have something I need, give it back to me. So she tells like Johnny like, okay, well, protect the younger version of yourself, because that's what we're here to save, like your innocence or whatever. And he starts like making the joke like, I think I lost that a long time ago, probably a few years after this little like dust up or whatever. And she says, focus, Johnny. And he says, I think I see our way out of here. So she tells him like, okay, well, take the kid and go. And he's like, but what about you? She says, don't worry about me, I'll take care of all of this. So I mean, we get some okay like action scenes in here, like this one where she like blasts them with, I don't know if it was the like Ghost Rider energy or her like sorcerer energy, but it looks pretty cool. So we get that, and then she's looking at these like zombies or whatever, and she says, there is no more to the picture here. This is no simple demon from hell. But all of a sudden he's telling her to like jump into the plane that they're getting into and shit. And then as they're trying to get away, his dad is one of the ones that comes and grabs her by the ankle. But she manages to like toss him off and they get away. And then while they're like flying and shit, all of a sudden his younger self just completely disappears, which freaks them the hell out. But then they're like, okay, well, I guess, since we saved that part of you, it like joined the greater consciousness or whatever. I don't know. So that's what happened with that. So they're flying on to the next location, and as they're getting closer, like Johnny notices like, okay, it's an island, so it looks like it could possibly be better. And when they land, he asks her like, do you have any guesses as to what this could possibly be? And she says, I have an idea, but it still needs further validation. So he's like, and she says, this demon, this thing, seems tied to certain memories, but that's not all. It has a consciousness of its own, and intentions far beyond your spirit of vengeance. Earlier, you described it as alien. I am beginning to suspect you were right. So he's asking her, like, well, how did it get inside me? And she says, I am no longer sure it is here for you, Blaze. I suspect you are only its first victim. And he's like, so it wants all the Ghost Riders? Which, I mean, we don't really have any confirmation for that. You're, like, the first one it's come to, right? Other than her. Like, we only came to her because it shared something very specific to her transformation or whatever. But she says, perhaps, it is surely power hungry. So he asks, how do we beat it? And she's like, well, honestly, I don't know. We must be ready for anything. And then that's where we get the next trick or whatever, where now the corruption is showing Johnny like his mother and his like brother and sister or whatever. And she's kind of like apologizing, like, I'm sorry I abandoned you and the family and everything, but now we can be happy and all of that. Like, come in and be with us, be a happy family. So she tries to tell Johnny immediately, like, you need to just tell them no and we need to walk away. Like, this is the trap. They're trying to get you to come in so that way you won't want to leave. So you need to tell her no and we can go. But of course, he like freaks out and he gets all pissed off. He's like, no, we're staying. So she's like, yeah, this is going to be a problem. So they go in, and of course he gets all happy and he's buying into all the bullshit, but he keeps telling her like, look, we're just going to stay for a little while. Like, we're just going to eat a little bit of food. We'll play some games. We'll go to bed tonight. We'll wake up well rested and everything, and then we'll leave. Everything's going to be fine. No problems at all. So she tries to tell him like, no, we need to leave and everything. He gets all pissed off and is trying to tell her like, no, you're not going to ruin this for me. And she says, you do not want to do this, Johnny, because he basically tells like, he starts triggering this whole thing where now they start attacking her too. And so they start leading her to the fire. And then the mom, who's looking all evil and shit, is saying, tie her up. We are going to cut that vengeance out of her and eat it for dessert. But that's where she's like, no, you're not going to do that. And she immediately like burns the brother and sister, and I guess the mom too. So now Johnny gets all pissed off. And he's like, fine, you're the one kind of subjecting me to this like cruel torture or whatever. He's like, you took them from me, all of them, and you're going to keep me company here in my own hell. So she's like, none of this is real, Johnny. You need to fight it. And he says, I'm tired of trying to figure out what's real and what's not. All I ever wanted was to ride my bike, drink a beer at a barbecue, and kiss my girl after a long day working on stunt cars. Instead, I got a freaking demon inside of me and a world of pain. I'm sick of it all. So, anyway, we go from there to where now Zarathos, which is basically like the demon that has always kind of like historically given him his power. Like that's kind of like the demon that from which he channeled his power or whatever the hell. So that's who shows up, and he's like, "This isn't real, Kushala," and he says, "Quiet, fool, and face your fire." And then we can see down here where she's like falling into this like giant crack and shit. And so again, we get more internal monologuing from her, where she's saying like, "As I fall, I wonder if this is also a battle for my soul, and what this demon intends for me next." It successfully separated me from Blaze, but I am beginning to suspect Blaze's struggle is a distraction. I don't know what this thing wants, and that frightens me. So now we kind of get like a recap of all of her stuff, like where, like I said, with the whole Sorcerer Supreme and like some of the stuff that she's gone through and shit, like her fights or whatever. And then she says, I was fortunate to have been raised by a people who understood these great energies. I could easily have succumbed to the vengeance as Johnny did. His power is a curse that consumed and controlled him, just as it first did to me. Until I realized I could control it. With the help of Auntie Jessa, a Tongva medicine woman who became my teacher, I learned to ride the fire. So she says, but this does not mean I am not haunted by my past, by my entire tribe's murder at the hands of the U.S. cavalry. Perhaps the vengeance in me was never mine at all. Perhaps this is the source. I thought I called the vengeance into myself, that my hate was so powerful it summoned demons. But the hate was never mine, was it? Vengeance is an invader. It was here before me, in the hearts of those soldiers, and it intends to outlive me. So this is where she starts to see, like, I guess, ghostly apparitions of the, like, soldiers who killed her, all of her people and shit. So she gets all pissed off, and she's talking about, like, well, the one thing I can do is I can burn them all to death again. So she does that, and then she says, I look into my mother's eyes for the last time. Again. And then it says, but this time her final words take on a new meaning, and she says, my daughter of the 7 generations, reaching before and extending beyond. So she says, as my mother breathes her final breath in the icy cold, she sends me a vision. Oh my lord. Just look at this. Look at all of this. And it's just a black page and just this. All of the, I'm just gonna shorten this for you. And I finally understand what I am facing. Not a demon, but a memory. It's scattered through our multiverse, fragments of it falling through time and space. For generations it has gathered itself together again, seeking ever more pain, more death, until nearly complete it found me. The peace lodged in Johnny's soul is the last, and it knew I would come. The Leviathan never cared about Johnny at all. You came for me, and that's where we finally see the Leviathan, I guess. It almost kind of looks like some sort of evolved form of a Digimon or something. But anyway, it says, finally, the little magician understands. I am the rage of a dead world, writer. You let me inside, and I have waited. No more. Now I will take back my other half and be reborn into your world. The time for my wrath and reckoning is upon us. So she says, an icy fear runs up my spine. If I fail, nothing will be able to stop this ancient being from exacting its vengeance. I ready myself for battle. I must contain this being once and for all. Rid Johnny of his infection, and perhaps even myself. So she immediately starts trying to fight it, but then of course, she's trying to fight it using like the power that she gets from it. So that's not doing very much of anything. And she does eventually realize that, where she says, my spirit is being crushed by the culmination of this god's wrath and rage. I feel everything going black as I struggle to fight back. I cannot defeat it with its own vengeance. My powers are nothing here. I close my eyes for what I imagine will be the last time, but I see the image of my mother before me. Her eyes are open, loving and kind. So this is where we kind of get like that type of just like that type of story I get, or that type of message where it's like, oh well, I was able to finally depower the beast or whatever when I let go of all my vengeance and anger and all that shit. So that's exactly what happens. It says she lets go, and then the leviathan loses all of its power, and then it shrinks down into this like tiny little like cute looking thing and shit. And it's over there saying like, I will only grow big again and hunt you down, Kushala. There is nothing you can do to stop me. And then she's like, in the internal monologue, it says, but I know I am not like the Leviathan or its people or its vengeance, and only I can contain it to make sure this does not happen again. I do the one thing that makes sense. And when I read that, I was like thinking to myself, well, surely there's no way that she's going to do something as stupid as like eat it or something. But no, yeah, she eats it. Like literally just eats it whole. And then that, I guess, does this, unlocks her like saint, canonized her as a saint or something. So anyway, it says, with that one act, I am now the vengeance complete. Blaze is free of the Leviathan, and I return back to Doctor Strange and the mountain where it all began. So she's telling them, like, it's done, its vengeance is whole and contained inside me, and Blaze is free. And then she's talking to Doctor Strange. She says, speaking of time, I must return to mine, to the 1800s. I have come to realize that my reason for being here was to become whole myself. Now I must go back to begin my lineage, my 7 generations, which will wind their way forward like the river from which we came. So he's telling her, like, all right, well, we have to work fast because your spirit is still kind of fluid. I'm assuming it's because of the whole like Leviathan thing. So you kind of have that wiggle room where you can move through time and it's not going to upset anything, I guess. Which, I mean, are they really that concerned about it? Y'all have like multiple incarnations of the same characters and multiple timelines always going on all at the same time. So does it really matter? Anyway, she tells him like, all right, well, let's figure this out. Like, show me how to create the portal and everything. So they do that. She goes back to her time. And then just out of nowhere, she tells them, like, please tell Heather and Tanya I said goodbye for now. Like, you couldn't at least go back and tell your friends, like, bye. Like, I'm going back to my time for now. Like, you're going back to birth 7 generations. Like, well, I mean, she's not going to do all of them herself. But you know what I mean? Like, she's going back to start a family. So I don't really think she's going to be popping back over in just a couple years. But I mean, I guess we'll see what ends up happening. So she says, the air smells different, new and fresh. The river babbles with life. Out across the plain, I see some smoke curl from a brand new steam engine stack. As one day closes, another begins. Above, I hear the circling hawks cry. I know what this land becomes. I know its pain and anger, our pain and anger. And I know that I must bring the good medicine to our lands. I am Kushala, a sorcerer supreme, but no longer a ghost or demon rider, nor a spirit of vengeance. I am something new, a spirit rider. So that's where we leave off with this. And that's where I'm saying, like, it started out seeming like this was going to be a story about, like, something that was going on with, like, Johnny Blaze. And I thought it was going to, like, open up into, like they said, it was going to end up involving all of the Ghost Riders. But instead, no, it was just, she's not a demon and she's not possessed by hatred or vengeance. She's just super chill. She's reached nirvana, man. So like she's the spirit rider, dude. So I mean that's basically what we got from this. Like that's all that this was meant to serve as, like, that springboard, I guess, for her. I don't know if they want to start telling stories now with the spirit rider in the 1800s or what they're going to do with that, but that's basically what we got from this. I don't know. That's all I could get from this. Like I said, I think you got like the whole story from this, and you didn't actually have to read all of it. And you should be thankful for that, because there are so many words and all of these captions and all of these like the dialogue and everything, and so much of it could have been left out. Like I ran through it real quick right now. It took me a lot longer to read it just because there was so much crap in there and so much like just like there was exposition, and then sometimes there was just unnecessary dialogue, and then you saw that one page that I literally just went from the top to the bottom. So I mean, I'm talking about like shit like that. A lot of this was just, you could have stripped a lot of this out, and you could have probably made a lot of other scenes that were at least halfway decent even better. But because we were trying to focus on like making so many grand statements and everything, a lot of it got lost in the shuffle. But That's it for this review on Spirit Writer #1 or whatever. So if you read this, then definitely feel free to let me know what you thought about it down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, then definitely do feel free to like the video and subscribe. If you enjoy this type of content, share it out if you know anyone else who might like this kind of content. But if you guys are done here, then go read a book. And if not, then I will see you on my next video.